Hi, my name is Mark Olives, and today I'd like to talk to you about the spinal disc. The spinal disc is a greatly misunderstood structure in the back that's unfortunately frequently injured. And I want to try and explain the mechanics of the disc so you have a greater understanding of how it works, so that you're not trying to do things that are possibly even more damaging to the disc, and so that you can help overcome a problem that you might be having with your disc. So to talk about the anatomy of the disc, first, let's take a look at a picture. So this would be the disc, and they're the same whether we're talking about the cervical spine or the lumbar spine. They're all going to be the same. They just vary in size more than anything. But the disc is a structure that connects this bone to this bone. So it's not like a separate entity that can slide in and out, but it's actually a structure that helps to provide space between the bones, because the nerves exit right in between here, which is a hole formed by the bone below and the bone above. So we want to get a greater space, and that's what the disc provides. But it's also, again, helping to hold the bones of the spine actually together. Now the fibers of the disc are oriented on diagonal patterns, and it's like layers of an onion. So the outer layer of the onion might lie like this. We peel that away, the next layer is going to orient in a 90-degree fashion to the first layer and go the opposite way. Now there's 7 layers of the disc, and then it gets down to a gelatinous substrate, which is, it's more viscous than water, not as thick as molasses, and it has to migrate through a thick, dense fibrous network that's inside of the disc. So it takes a while for the disc material to travel from one side to the other one. Now today I want to talk to you about the 3 activities and or positions that are most damaging to the disc. So the disc is thinnest in the back, and that's where you're only going to get bulges. You'll never have a bulging disc in the front. You can get tears, you can get bulges, and what that is essentially the tissue gets, through repeated trauma or one big trauma at once, this tissue will become weakened, and you can think of it like a worn out tire when it gets thin with rubber and then eventually a bubble pops out. That's what's going to happen here. The idea of being able to do something, say decompression or chiropractic manipulation to get this disc to come back in is completely preposterous. It's the same concept of what are you going to do when your tire has a bubble on it? You could push on it, you could do whatever you want. That bubble is going to keep coming back out. So just to give you an idea that there is hope, the fact is your body will form scar tissue over the top of this tissue. Scar tissue, eventually as it matures, it does constrict. It will become a very solid structure back here, but it's going to take a while. It will never be as good as the original equipment. You'll always have a bulge here, but it's not like a death sentence where, oh my God, I got a disc bulge and now it's all over. I tell people over 50% of the population have bulging discs in their back. So most of them don't have a clue that they have disc bulges. So don't be too concerned if you have an MRI that comes back positive and shows that you have a problem in a disc. So again, going back to talking about what's most damaging to these discs, it's kind of 3 basic positions that'll get you in the most trouble. So if I bend forward, I compress the front part of the disc, that's going to drive the disc material to the back. Now putting pressure up against the back part stretches this tissue out, which is going to elongate it, make it more taut, make it more vulnerable. And then having, again, all that pressure back here, it's going to be in a state that if I have another force, like say a compressive force, or I go to lift something, that's going to maybe be all it takes to tear this or cause it to bubble out and bulge. Another position that's especially bad for discs is rotation. So just by simply rotating my spine like this, I go from having 1 time the force of gravity forcing down on my spine to 4 times the force of gravity. So there's 4 times as much pressure on my spine in this position than in this position. And the reason for that is, again, these disc fibers are oriented on a diagonal pattern. And so if when I twist, those diagonal fibers, as I twist, are going to become more taut, and so it screws the disc down or pulls the bones together. That's going to cause forcing of the fluid out to the periphery. And again, it's going to load that back part of the disc and potentially cause a problem. So flexion, rotation, are two bad things. Now, if I really want to get the trifecta of disaster for a disc, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flex, I'm going to twist, and I'm going to lift something. When that happens, the loads on the spine are exponential. Even without holding something, they've demonstrated that the pressures on your disc are just incredible. So now even if you grab, say, your purse or just something light, 5-10 pounds off the ground, you think, that's nothing. I don't have to worry about my body mechanics. I don't have to worry about keeping my back straight. I'm just going to bend down and get this thing. Well, if you're flexed, you're rotated, and you're loaded, that's asking for trouble. So I get tons of patients that come in and they say, I really didn't do anything. I just bent down and I went to get something. And then it caused a problem. So I tell people, even though you might not be doing anything horribly strenuous, you always have to be careful and try your best to avoid combining those three activities. So once again, flexion, rotation, bending forward and lifting, that's disaster. Another thing to think about is sitting actually puts more pressure on your discs than standing. So you might be sitting thinking, I'm protecting my back, I'm sitting. So from this position, no sweat, I'll just bend forward, rotate and lift some stuff. That's even worse. So I tell people to be especially careful of that position. So always keep in mind, it's best to keep your back straight or neutral. If you do have to lift, even if it's something very light, make sure that you arch or extend your back so that your bottom is poking out. Keep your head up because that'll help dictate the position of your spine. If you rotate up, it'll help to extend the spine. And then make sure you just bend your knees and lift. And that will help to keep you out of trouble. I hope this helps. Thanks.